Hello, I'm Zenande Mketeni. I'm an artist from the Eastern Cape, but I reside in Joburg, and I've been practicing for plus minus 10 years now. Throughout high school, I did art, and then in my varsity years, I also did an undergrad in art and fine art, and now I am a practicing artist full time, and I work in the mediums of printmaking, sculpture, photography, video, painting, muraling. The list is endless. Currently, I am taking over a residency that was awarded to me from the Meta Foundation as an LGBTQ artist, where I'll be taking up the space for the next 12 months, where I'll be making work that expresses whichever place I am in right now in my life and expressing ideas and subject matters, and I'm very excited to explore that in the space. I think my art career started to boil around second year. I would enter a lot of competitions. I was able to get myself a mentor also that was also in the art world or is currently also in the art world. So that helped me a lot to launch the kind of ideas I wanted and the kind of way I wanted to see my career go. So by entering competitions, talking, going to events and exhibitions openings, I was able to start garnering some sort of community. And even after I finished my studies, I kept showing myself up in the art world, whichever way I can, using social media. And I've been in group shows locally and abroad, and I've put myself in different spaces to be able to be visible. I think what's sometimes challenging is we just need some advice sometimes, and it seems like it's advice that would come from inside the industry that you seem as an emerging artist. Sometimes it seems like it's information you don't have access to, so things around how to value your work and showing yourself as a business or an entity and all of those ins and outs are very challenging when you don't know about them. So being an emerging artist, it gets difficult there. Also visibility, sometimes it can get tricky. I realized during my studies that there were so many mediums to work in and play in different skill sets. So it was very interesting to realize that the more skills you obtain, the more mediums you start using. So when I first started my study career, I did surface textile design, and I learned things like stitching and crocheting and knitting there, where now it still finds its way in my printmaking and so forth. So I think the photography found me in a naughty space in my art making, where I was taking pictures in spaces like Xhosa, like the crawl space, where women are not exactly allowed to be dancing around taking pictures in it, but I'll be using that space. But also it was interesting because my family also encouraged me in it to do it when I asked. I did ask for permission, but also, is that me being a rebel or not? But I asked for permission, and it was interesting that my family also allowed me that opportunity to use the space where they say it is my home, to use it freely and stuff. So that was also some sort of resistance as a woman, because I know when my photography, I started like showing it and so forth, a lot of people in my community were like, why is she showing it like that and stuff? And also people ask, are the goats real? Did I Photoshop them? The goats are very real, and I did not Photoshop them. My personal life and my art become one, because I think I represent myself too as an artwork itself. So I think self-expression becomes some sort of artwork of its own that daily you show the world. But I think also through my visibility in working around feminism and social issues that I care about, slowly your art starts finding itself, because now I found myself making murals around gender-based violence and awareness and so forth in that space, and I found my activism and my art come together very well. It's been really well. I've enjoyed visiting other artists in their studios, seeing what ways they've used different materials. I've been interested in how people are using beadwork, people are using wool, and stuff like that. And just like, I like that. I want to learn all of those skills. So I've been very heavily influenced, and also the conversations we've had around being an artist of color has come up a lot in the space, and also how we navigate being first generation artists maybe in our families or in our communities, and trying to also show other people that art can be a career, a lucrative one that you can make livelihood on and grow in and expand in and be celebrated in. Has been a more male visible community in the art world. Even when I was in varsity and in high school, learning about women artists was very hard. And if you learned about a woman artist, it would be one that is not of color and so forth. So you had to start finding and excavating, and then there's the top 5 of the top 10, and then it's like, why, when there's such a treasure trove of other male artists to dig into through history, like going back and stuff, versus woman artists. So there is some sort of imbalance, I'd like to say, in the numbers and the faces and the representation, let me say, in terms of women artists, women of color in art also. So I'd like to see that change a lot. I know there are girlies in the community and we do stick together a lot. I think a lot of the women artists tend to get to know each other because we it seems like we have to support each other. There's no other way for us not to uplift each other and so forth. So yeah, art can be a boys' club sometimes. Culture and stuff has also been a very interesting topic, and the more I've grown in my art making and in my learning and my collection of knowledge and stuff, I realize there's a lot of topics around culture and nationalism and so forth that we're not talking about. Of, I want this to happen and stay the same, but I want this to change, and I'm like, are these things allowed to change or exist in the same space? So I'm hoping my art will find these nooks and crannies where it can, and if not, then I would also want my art to be able to break those barriers completely or show those binaries exactly as they're happening and so forth. The mosque, I started going into the mosque around my 3rd year of studies, and there was very something interesting around African culture, masquerade, mosque, and the older I got and the more I changed too, I was like, everyone's performing and people are taking masks off and putting them on for different spaces that they occupy, and then some people hide behind their masks. Some people love wearing their masks and all of that. So the whole mask obsession started around that, and then I started excavating the energies or the entities, I would say, that could also inhabit our spaces that we don't know or exactly see. So a mosque is a good place to put, where you can put something that could be figurative or so forth. So I started using the mosque in that, showing spaces of in-betweenness or liminalness in spirituality and reality and dreams and consciousness and so forth. So the mosques were a nice place to be able to play around the there and not there, and who wears a mask, who doesn't. Can a mask also hold energy when it's sitting alone? The same way African masks are believed to be cursed or whatever, but it's just a mask sitting there, but everyone's like, it's gonna curse you. So those kind of like mythicisms and stuff really interested me during that time, and also still now, the mask and masquerade and performance still pulls in to a lot of the things I'm interested in, and I'm gonna look way more into it. Yeah. During this residency, I would like to grow as an artist. I'd like my mediums to change, as I now have a space to be able to work bigger. So I'm hoping sculptures will happen and so forth, and more me and stuff, because I've been quiet a bit in the art world. So it's going to be a good reintroduction into this industry through this residency. Also, I'm hoping to collaborate with more artists that are of color, that are queer. Also, I really love to collaborate with more queer artists. There is certain people I have in mind, but let me just like keep that to myself. I'd like to also work with different brands and different spaces that I never imagined I would find myself in. I'd like my work to be more visible during this time. Hopefully, you'll see a wall or a building with me on it. I'm hoping, so I'm putting it out in the universe. I think with artists that have existed in the art world for a while now, people like Ati Pataruga, they've been a pioneer in queer art. A lot of performance artists are queer, it seems, but they sit in like more theater spaces and so forth. So we never really see them in galleries. But also people like Banela Xhosa, they've changed a lot of the demographic of queer artists and taking up space in different ways, making queer art also. Do you know what I mean? Where it doesn't have to just be separate, whatever. These people are generally making art around their queerness and so forth. There's also Zanele. They've made art around queerness for long, long, long. So I'm very excited to see what artists like me in these identities and growing and so forth in these bodies, what they're gonna express and stuff. So I'm very interested to see. I'm very excited, and there's definitely a lot of space. People really want to hear and see what we have to say, especially I think in fashion and so forth. Queer people have taken a lot up, and slowly I want us to just and just munch into all the corners. Yeah, our creativity.